Hi, my name is April Fredrick, and I'd love to talk to you about a project I'm currently developing. It's called Her War, and it's an opera for soprano and trumpet about the female experience of post-traumatic stress syndrome in World War I. So this would be the nurses, the ambulance drivers, and the VADs, the Voluntary Aid Detachment, who were supporting the men, processing the wounded, and working in various capacities alongside them, sometimes in some theaters of war, fighting on the front lines with them. But who, when they returned from the war to the UK, found that unlike the men, they were not offered automatic pensions. And they actually had a 2-year period where they were having to fight for the right to go to the tribunals like the men were. And when they arrived, they were having to sort of fight for the recognition that their symptoms were a direct result of the trauma that they had experienced in the war. It all began over a drink at the Barbican. I had met Simon Desbruslais working as a soloist with 2 different orchestras in the Midlands, the Orchestra of the Swan and the English Symphony Orchestra, and we worked in other capacities as well, and we met up to develop a completely different project. But as we were talking, we were reflecting on the fact that we are both performing academics, which is fairly rare in the UK, and we were thinking about how research can feed into performance. And I did my master's and doctoral research on a poet and composer named Ivor Gurney, who was in the trenches in World War I. And in the course of that, I'd done a lot of thinking about how the war had affected the soldiers, both on the front and when they returned. So I said to Simon, do you know what? I've had a crazy idea. Why don't we do an opera for soprano and trumpet about PTSD? And initially we both thought, that's an amazing idea. And we thought a bit more and we thought, that's bonkers. How would that actually work? And then we thought a bit more and we thought, do you know what? That might just be mad enough to work, because trumpet has so many colors and so many connotations in the mind, and I have a voice with a lot of different colors, and what if we use physical theater, and actually are there things that we could say with just the bareness of those 2 voices that we actually couldn't if there were more instruments. So we thought, let's see if this has legs. So next we needed to find a composer. And Simon had done a lot of work with Edwin Roxburgh before, but also said, listen, Edwin's got the right sound world. It's this mixture of the kind of crunchiness, the dissonance, but also this lyricism. And he's done a lot of work for solo instruments. So there's this kind of eloquence to his use of musical line. And I listened to some of his work and I thought, yep, I think this could be an amazing thing. And then we needed to find someone to write the text. I knew that I wanted someone who was suffused in the subject matter, who had a huge background knowledge and who just spent hours and hours and hours with the source material, so he could sort of unroll it, like where is it a bazaar, and say, yes, this is what we want. And I wanted, in large part, the libretto to be based on actual historical source material. This was right towards the end of the centenary World War I years in the UK, and I contacted a group of writers who had been working on the BBC Radio 4 drama Tommies, which followed specific sort of troop movements in specific days during the war. The creator of Tommies, Jonathan Ruffle, was one of the first to get back to me. And originally I'd framed the project about the experience of the men coming back and what it was like for the women who'd been on the home front to receive back these men who were so altered by their experience. And he said to me, amazing project, love the idea of it. That's already been done to a large extent. But the thing which no one seems to be talking about is the experience of the women. And as I went away and looked at some of the source material that he showed to me, I realized that yes, there is a comparatively tiny body of literature talking about the female experience. And of course, just the psychology and physiology of men versus women is different in the biology. But also the gender roles in Edwardian England were so different that even though they were having the same experience, it would have affected them in a profoundly different fashion. And so I thought, let's run with it. Let's think of this female experience. So we started developing the project and kind of thinking, well, what are we trying to do, and applying for some funding, and the first application didn't work, and then we both got busy with other things, and then we put in another application this spring just before the pandemic hit. So all the funding got stopped and rerouted, and we thought, well, great, there's no way we're going to make it for the 2020 Tat Festival, which was our target. And then Tat came back in May and said, we're offering you a slot. Get as far as you can. We're kind of all in the same boat. Use it in whatever way you can to advance the project. For the purposes of the 2020 Tat Festival, we have decided to essentially make it an R&D premiere. So to just present 10 minutes of material as a segment, a taster of the whole, which we will be developing later. And so Jonathan has found this amazing source document that we're going to use for the basis of the libretto. And we're trying to develop a whole new kind of process. One of the unique aspects of this show is that we're trying to make it trauma-informed. The cellist and trauma play therapist, Emma Claire Wynne-Jones, is going to be working with us to help us understand more about the psychology and the physiology of trauma, so that we can be thinking of these patterns and these triggers as we're developing the forms and the patterns of the words, the actual sound palette, and again, the forms of the music, and then also the physicality, which I will be portraying. The primary aim of this project is to give a voice to the voiceless, not only the historical women whose stories we're drawing from, but also to those who are experiencing similar dynamics, appearing in front of tribunal panels, not being believed, having this gulf of experience between them and those to whom they're trying to prove their right to support today. So we want our engagement work to be part of a larger restorative circle, and we're really excited about developing that also with Emma. And it's this whole project, this telling of the historical aspects which weaves into current experience, that I think is really special about this work. The challenges of taking on this project in such a short time span have been quite considerable. I have never produced a work before, and I have never been the sort of point woman and the coordinator for a devised work like this. So I am very much learning as I go, and I am really, really grateful to Tat, who have been an astounding partner in this process, giving us essentially a blank check for creativity and being so gracious and so flexible in the whole process, keeping us updated on all the changing government guidance and the implications for our shows, connecting us with the other makers who are contributing so we can brainstorm and support each other. It's just been such a wonderful creative environment, and I feel like what I'm also sort of seeing is the opportunity for reinvention that our whole sector has in action. That, okay, the old ways of doing things don't work right now. Maybe it'll be a long time until they can work. So what can we do differently? And I'm seeing all these different makers think in this way, and I'm really privileged to be one of them. So we hope that you will join us as we continue on this adventure, that you will follow our progress and our process, and that you will join us for our premiere, whatever form it takes, on September 18th, and for the development of the project afterwards. Thank you so much for your time.